بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, it pleases me once again to be here with Imam Ghazali Institute delivering the latest session on the refinement of souls of Imam Ibn Atā'illah al-Sikandari rahimahullah ta'ala. May Allah shower his mercy upon him and benefit us through his works and his knowledge. Ameen. And we reach a section where the author talks about knowledge or beneficial knowledge. And this is very important because knowledge is the basis and the foundation for all success in life, whether it's in the world or it's in the akhirah, whether it's in your deen or it's in your dunya. Knowledge is the foundation to all success. And he says that whenever knowledge is mentioned in the book of Allah or in the pure sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then only and solely beneficial knowledge is intended. Knowledge which brings benefit, which increases your connection to Allah, which makes you a better person. This is the knowledge that is being referred to. And then he quotes some ayat of the Qur'an, which I think is important for us to relate. The first is a very famous ayah talking about the fruits of knowledge, which says, truly, those truly fear Allah amongst his servants who have knowledge. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءُ. The only ones who truly fear Allah, have reverence of Allah, are the people of knowledge, meaning knowledge that brings about reverence and awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what true knowledge is and what knowledge is for. And without knowledge, you cannot achieve this. Knowledge is the foundation, as we said. He here explained that knowledge accompanies fear and awe. Thus it is the scholars who truly fear and have awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the case of your prayer, of your worship. The more knowledge you have, the more you learn, and the more you learn about Allah and his attributes and our beliefs as Muslims, the more you will engage in your prayer and submit and revere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the power of knowledge. And let's quote some other ayat of the Quran. Them says, and say, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. قُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. But those who are firmly grounded in knowledge, they surrender, they submit. In the Quran, Allah says. And then from the hadith, we also have the virtue and merits of knowledge, where the Prophet ﷺ said in a famous hadith, the ulama, the scholars, are the warathatul anbiya, the inheritors of the prophets. وَلَمْ يُوَرِّثُوا دِرْهَمًا وَلَا دِينَارًا وَلَكِنْ وَرَّثُوا الْعِلْمَ فَمَنْ أَخَذَ بِهِ فَقَدْ أَخَذَ بِحَظٍّ وَافِرٍ. The scholars are the inheritors, the heirs of the prophets, and the prophets did not leave behind, did not bequeath gold and silver. This is not the inheritance of the worldly aspect of belongings. This was a much deeper aspect and realm of inheritance, which was warathul ilm, whoever takes knowledge. And as Imam Ibn Atā'illah says, not just knowledge of facts and figures, but beneficial knowledge. So it means here of the laws of Islam, of the beliefs of Islam, of the rectification of the heart, of the characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ, and learning how to inculcate that into ourselves and those around us. Subduing one's egos and desires is a part of this beneficial knowledge, because that's what knowledge, that's what the worship is there for. It regulates us. Sharia is there to give us dabt, to give us discipline and regulation, and to refine our souls. And this is what we need to be learning and practicing. And in this regard, the author continues to talk about how knowledge is what conditions and regulates, and the Sharia, the knowledge of the Sharia, of the laws, is what conditions and regulates the spiritual journey. So you will find people, unfortunately, that will say, it's all about the heart, and as long as I've got a good heart and I have good behavior and morals towards others and around me, and uphold a good sort of moral ground and behavior and good characteristics, that's okay. I don't need to worry about prayer, I don't need to worry about fasting, I don't need to worry about zakat. All these things, they're extra, or they're beneficial, but I don't need them because my heart's pure. And the spiritual journey doesn't mean you have to do all these things. You can just sit down and do some zikr, just remember Allah for 5 minutes, and that's enough for the day. You know, these kind of ideas, heretical ideas, come about through a misunderstanding. So the author talks about this. Actually says here, he says, whoever gives free rein to himself in respect to unrestricted usage of divine oneness and does not restrict himself to the outward facets of the sacred law has thereby been thrown into the sea of heresy. So we have to, the prayers, the 5 obligatory prayers during the day, the Sharia clear cut, decisively explains to us how to pray, when to pray, fasting, zakat. If your Hajj is obligatory upon you, then perform the Hajj. Use the money Allah has blessed you with to do that. Not hold on to it out of greed, out of fear of loss. If you have that and the conditions are met, then you will never be in loss if you follow the commands of Allah. Rather, you'll put yourself in harm's way and in trouble in this life and the next by not fulfilling the commands of Allah, whether they're connected to our body, to our wealth, or to our time, etc. Sacrifice is for Allah, and He wants us to do it in these ways, and that's how the spiritual journey works. So we have to be regulated by the sacred law, but at the same time we need to have a spiritual journey alongside that. We've talked about several times before. It's not merely about outward action. It's about the presence of the heart, about the engagement of the heart and the worship and the connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we need to also build within ourselves. And then he says, it talks about knowledge and continues that knowledge of the creation should also take us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not veil us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a very good point, because we learn, and there's many people out there that learn about science, about systems in creation, wildlife, rivers, seas, mountains, the universe, and unfortunately, rather than use that to see how amazing the creation of Allah is and how it takes you back to Allah, we almost use it to deny God. And this is what scientists generally, not all of them, but the kind of scientism, materialistic atheism movement is all about, is about using the world and tangible and measurable and empirical data to kind of figure out how the world came about and to deny God and to put another theory in there that kind of rules out God. This is disbelief. This is what's unfortunately a big thing right now in today's day and age, and we need to have this knowledge and learn how. And there are people in history, they just don't get the publicity, they don't get the propaganda, they don't get the funding. But just like Darwin, there was others that actually said no, creation and the science that we learn and how we understand things actually takes us to a God, to a creator, and to a belief in a divine power, rather than denying that and trying to substitute that with something that's theoretical and theories and guesswork and trying to put two and two together just to deny God. The basis is disbelief. You've already got a premise in mind. You already got the end in mind to kind of fulfill this kind of goal at the end. So whatever it takes to get there, as long as it sounds good, should be what we put forward. And that's not how to be objective and fair and look at life. If you look at it in the right way, it will take you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what he says: knowledge that veils you from Allah is not the knowledge you need. Knowledge that brings you closer to Allah, of whatever you learn around you, is the knowledge which you need to acquire and you to continue to acquire to build your awe of Allah, your the sense of purpose and substance in yourself and those around you. The more you give yourself and have in yourself, the more you can give to other people. And this is why, being in the company of the great ulama and the people of Iman, you feel the effect of their Iman and knowledge. You feel that the positive energy just being around such people, because they have it to give it. The spiritual purification of the heart, the morals, the characters, the beautiful character of someone impacts you. You feel that. It's not a physical feeling, but it's a feeling of heart to heart, and it really uplifts your spirit sometimes. That's what we need to take. Be around such people and around such environments where your Iman is getting stronger, your knowledge is increasing, and increasing your attachment to your Lord Almighty, the creator of everything that we know, the one that gave us the actual brain in the first place to think with. And how crazy we are to go and then think that this brain, use this brain to then deny God or explain away God and so forth. So we need to remember the actual purpose in life and where we're heading, insha'Allah ta'ala. And then as another point he mentions, after talking about this being veiled from Allah and asking for this tawfiq, guidance to learn the knowledge and be on the right path and amongst the right people and being sort of focused on our spiritual journey, he talks about provisions. And he says, a beautiful point he makes, he says that know that the door to provision is obedience to the provider. The ta'ah, the obedience to Allah, is the door to His sustenance, His provisions. So how can it be sought from Him through disobedience? And this is a very important point. And what the author, he explains himself here, he doesn't mean that if you disobey Allah, He won't give you food and drink, and you won't have, the ability to buy and, look after yourself. Everyone has that. People who disbelieve in God have that. It's not about that provision. He explains, he says, moreover, how is it possible for His grace to descend when one is in opposition to Him? He said, that which is with Allah cannot be gained by His displeasure. Allah, the Prophet said, that which is with Allah, i.e. the bounties of Allah, cannot be gained through His displeasure. Namely, His provisions are not sought except through good deeds that attain His pleasure. He explains this further with his words, and for whoever fears Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Qur'an, in His words, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ, whoever fears, has taqwa, has awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He ever prepares a way out. وَيَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا, He provides, He makes the way out for you, He gives you the way to deliverance. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, and He provides, He gives you provision and sustenance from where you would never think. لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, you wouldn't even imagine. Due to this meaning, Shaykh Abul Abbas al-Mursi, rahimahullah, the teacher of Imam Ibn Atā'illah, when he said in his supplication, he made a supplication, he said, and O Allah, give us such and such, and you have to ask for something, he said, and give us agreeable, trouble-free provisions, wherein there is no veil in this world, nor for which there is accountability, interrogation, or punishment in the hereafter. And this is the point of the provisions. We can always get what we want, but we can get it through the halal or the haram. And sometimes we can't get what we want through the halal. And that's the challenge. Are you going to disobey Allah and take it through the haram? Then you haven't received provision from Allah. You've received provisions, yes, but when you say not from Allah, meaning not from the blessings of Allah, not from the bounty of Allah, but from the wrath of Allah. That's going to be troublesome for you in this world. You usurp somebody's wealth, that's haram for you to use. You've wronged somebody to get the wealth. You've committed a crime against the commands of Allah. You have to pay for that. You have to be accountable for that. And then you have the next life, if you think you've got away with it, is to be accountable for and to be questioned and to be taken to task. So it only brings about detriment and destruction for you to disobey Allah. Whereas the obedience that brings the provisions of Allah, it brings this trouble-free, agreeable, like it's what you want, it's what makes you feel good. It takes away the anxieties of living and worrying about your provisions and tomorrow and the day after. That's the best thing you could ever attain or achieve in life, that serenity, that tawakkul, that trust upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, the point here, the connecting point to the previous point is, once you learn the Sharia and you apply it and you attain your provisions in a halal way, that will support you in your heart to become more reliant upon Allah. But if you don't learn the laws and you go about doing your transactions and you take wealth and you do things in life without fulfilling the commands of Allah, you only bring difficulty into your life. And this, what I personally believe, is the cause of many of our problems today, dear brothers and sisters. We don't learn the commands of Allah. We don't get involved and enroll on courses or even online courses or ask questions to our local Maulanas, Imams, Muftis. We don't get involved. We just are oblivious to what Allah wants from us. Our Creator has ordained for us, and then we complain about the problems that come our way. Then we complain about a lack of this or too much of this, or a problem with the family, or a problem with this, or I can't feel this. Mental illnesses now are so prevalent. They're very much connected to our disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more obedient we would be, the more we would be free of these problems, right? And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify us. These are all forms of purification. These are not like punishments. For the believer, it's all good. But they're forms of purifying us, right? The forms of, even if you are good and you get problems, it's the forms of raising your ranks. But really, a lot of the problems are connected to disobedience. Allah knows best which are connected to what, but there are many theories around, and there are many connections we can find in the Quran and the Sunnah of certain punishments for certain crimes, for certain acts of disobedience. So we ask Allah to keep us in a state of well-being, to keep us protected and keep us safe and away from His disobedience and His punishment. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you very much for listening to this if you reached so far, and please support Imam Ghazali Institute and their work, and thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.